Okay, who wants to be first?
Dr. Carson, Alan Cohn from ABC.
I got to plug the mic in. Go ahead. Someone else go ahead. Someone else.
Dr. Carson, Donald Trump's going to be on SNL this weekend. What are your thoughts? Do you plan on watching? And will you push for equal time as mandated by the FCC?
I would not want equal time on SNL.
Do you plan on watching?
No.
Would you do SNL if asked?
No.
Why?
Because I think the presidency is a very serious thing, and I don't like making light of it like that.
Dr. Carson, Florida voters could decide next year to legalize medical marijuana or go for complete legalization. As a doctor, what do you think of these efforts?
I think medical marijuana in the appropriate way is excellent. Works very well for a lot of seizure patients. I think general legalization of marijuana is a terrible ideal. Many studies have shown that it affects the developing brain, and the brain continues to develop until the late 20s, and it can affect one's IQ. And we don't need more people with affected IQ.
Dr. Carson, why do you want to be president?
Well, it wasn't something that was on my bucket list, but I really want to save our nation for the next generation is the short answer.
Mr. Trump is out there today taking shots at you and Senator Rubio and just about everyone else. And among the criticisms of Mr. Trump and some others is that when you speak, you don't give specifics about what you would do in terms of taxes, the budget, foreign policy.
I've given very specifics about those things. People like to say they're not specific. They're quite specific.
Are they practical?
Yes, they're very practical.
Dr. Carson, you say that you want to be president because you want to save the people, bring our nation back. What are the first two things that you would do in the Oval Office?
Well, among the first things is to make sure that a joint session of Congress recognizes that we serve the people and they don't serve us. And another thing is that we're going to get our fiscal house in order. We're not going to continue to increase the debt that our nation owes and compromise the future for our children.
Hey, Dr. Quinnipiac poll released today has you 50% against Hillary with 40%. Just your reaction to that?
That doesn't particularly surprise me, given the kind of people that the two of us are.
How is your campaign going to have to change as we get closer to the first primaries and caucuses?
Well, obviously it grows. The number of people continues to grow. It becomes more sophisticated, more intricate. But for the most part, I don't feel that I have to make a lot of changes because I'm not a politician. Politicians are always putting their finger in the air saying, now what do I have to do? Whereas all I have to do is tell them the truth. It makes it a whole lot easier.
Dr. Carson, in the new poll today, Trump supporters, 52% of them say they have their mind made up vis-a-vis Trump. You, only 34% have their mind made up. What are you going to do to turn those numbers around?
Well, I guess we're making progress because the last time it was only 15% of mine, so they're up to 34. That's great. Thank you.
In that same poll, it talks about how voters believe that you and Mr. Trump have the least experience. How do you bridge that gap?
Well, it depends on what experience you're talking about. The political class in Washington has managed to convince a bunch of people that they're the only ones who can solve problems, that all other experience doesn't count. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think the experience that's important is how do you solve complex problems, and how do you use the resources and the people around you in a positive way, in a synergistic way, in order to accomplish your goals. I think that's much more important than spending decades in the public sphere as an elected official. And I could name many people who have done just that, who you probably wouldn't want to tie your shoe.
One more question. Right here.
Dr. Carson, one of those complex problems is drug addiction, and there's a viral video with Chris Christie talking very personally about what to do about the scourge of drug addiction. New Hampshire, one of the early states, obviously is a place where heroin addiction has been particularly bad. So what would you do? A lot of the other candidates on the Republican side are talking about less incarceration, more public money potentially for helping people who are drug addicted. What's your plan?
There is a highway for heroin from Mexico into Arizona and Texas. First of all, I would stop that highway. I would, secure that border so that we don't have all this traffic coming in here. It becomes much easier to control it at the border than once it gets into the country. As far as our policies on what to do with addicted people, there are all kind of addictions in our country right now. Heroin is just one of them. A lot of that goes to the underlying needs in our country. And I think we're going to have to start addressing some of those underlying needs that people have that leaves them empty and feeling that they must have something else.
But what do you do
fills the
for
void.
people who are addicted now? And the incarceration problems it causes?
Well, the incarceration problems, you have to look at where that fits in terms of people who are just taking drugs, putting them into an incarceration situation with violent criminals is not helpful to us. That's one of the reasons that we have 5% of the population and 25% of the prisoners. That is a complex issue. I'm not going to be able to answer it in a soundbite.
All right, thanks folks. Please don't crowd the podium area. You're welcome to come.